Well, we're going to modify that little part where Liam made you sound like a dropout.
Put it all on him, right? Yeah.
I had in here Connor is a piece of shit. So I'm just going to update that.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Liam is a little brutal sometimes, so we'll change that.
Good, man. I love it. I'm the youngest of 4, so it's like you guys have a great energy. I'm ready to do this.
I'm Alicia.
And I'm Liam. We both have OCD, and instead of spiraling alone, we decided to turn our symptoms into a podcast. You're welcome.
Here, we overshare real stories, laugh through the anxiety, and talk to actual experts who can explain why your brain keeps asking, what if I accidentally marry my cousin?
Whether your thing is hand washing, mental rituals, or just silently panicking during normal conversations, congrats. You have found your people.
This is a safe place, unless you're an intrusive thought, in which case, get in line, buddy. We're booked.
So grab a weighted blanket, cancel your plans for the 5th time, and let's dive in. This is the OCD Confessional.
And yes, we did check this recording 4 times before uploading it.
Welcome back to the OCD Confessional. Connor Stout describes himself as just a dude in his 20s who has OCD. He was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder at 10 years old, struggling with contamination OCD and harm OCD. His symptoms got bad enough in college that he had to take a break from school. But he's now a psychiatric rehabilitation specialist, dedicating his career to helping others dealing with mental health issues. And he's created a platform, Still Good Wellness, with the aim of creating community and reducing stigma. Connor, welcome to the OCD Confessional.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. Like we said, this is my first time, first podcast ever. So I'm glad it's with you two.
Well, we are honored to have you, Connor.
Thank you.
We're going to jump in. We'd like to start. I know you've heard a few episodes, so we'd like to start with a confession. So Connor, do you have a confession today, an OCD confession?
Yeah. So I'm actually going to give you guys 2. I don't know if you've ever had somebody give 2, but I'm going to give 2. So my first one is when I was in college, I was a freshman in college going into my sophomore year. And I was shopping to go back to school. So I was like, all right, I'll get a new pair of shoes. And I had an obsession about sizes, like the just right OCD. So is this the right size? Is this shoe too tight? Is it too big, too wide, whatever it was? So I actually went to a shoe store, tried a 10.5 on, bought that one, wore it for a few days, went back, returned them, wore the 11 for a few days. And I think I went back, tried the 10.5 again, wore those for a few days. 4th time was the charm. I took the 11 home and I wore that. Yeah, so I didn't scuff the shoes up enough for them to notice, but that's...
I was going to say, I'm surprised they took them back after all that.
Crazy, yeah, so crazy. So that was my one confession, and then my second confession is just coming on this podcast is a little exposure for myself. I'm actually traveling right now, visiting some college friends, and when you guys reached out to me, I was hesitant to accept this date because I'm not in my perfect setting. So usually I like to be in my room with notes in front of me, in a comfortable setting that I know. So right now I'm in Maryland doing my thing from a college friend's house, and that's my second.
And how do you feel being out of your comfort zone?
Well, at first I was like, damn, I don't know if this is going to go too well. I feel like my nerves are going to get in the way, but you guys make it pretty easy, so I appreciate that.
No. Well, I can relate to that. I have a little bit of perfectionism for sure, and I will spiral into a panic attack if things don't feel perfect. So thanks for being here, despite being in your comfort zone.
You should see Alicia's setup for the lighting and how long that takes.
I've actually gotten a lot better. Like, if I don't even have lights, I just sit in front of a window.
That's right.
It's when I have to set up the lights and they don't. Yeah, it's a whole thing, and it sends me into
That's
a
what
funk.
I'm doing right now. I just got the window light. I got God's light on me right here, just the sunshine.
That's right.
Really neat.
The best light. Okay, so Connor, do you remember the first time OCD showed up for you, or when something felt not right?
I do. So I was in 2nd grade at this time, so I believe I was around 8 years old. And when I would come home to do my homework, I would spend insane amounts of time doing an assignment. So for example, if it was like a writing assignment to write 5 sentences about a book, it should probably take me 10, 15 minutes as a 2nd grader, and it would take me an hour because I had this perfectionism inside of myself where I would erase because the letter L didn't look perfect, or I'd erase because one letter was bigger than each other when I wrote it. So it was a visual thing. It got to the point where I would have episodes where just like I'd be venting, crying at the table. Like I'll see some things on TikTok. It's like trying to do your homework with your son or daughter, and both the parents and the son or daughter's crying, everything. It was like that, and it got to the point where like I would erase so much that my mom and I would have to tape the papers back together, stuff like that. So that was before the contamination OCD. So I had this like perfectionism thing, and my parents kind of started to notice that. But then for myself, is like the following about a year and a half later, going in, like when I turned 10 years old, I was on summer vacation at the beach with my family, and I was spending more time in the bathroom washing my hands. I grew up, like I said, in a family of four siblings outside, covered in dirt all the time, playing outside. And I would just, put your hands in the bag of chips and eat them without washing your hands. And then all of a sudden I was spending time in the bathroom. And that's when my parents noticed it. My mom, I remember she came in on vacation. She said, "Hey, what are you doing in there still?" But I didn't think anything of it. Never heard of OCD. Nobody in my family's ever heard of OCD. So that, I would say the hand washing was like the second to the perfectionism and writing that I was like, all right, something's might be up.
What did your parents make of it? I know you said your mom noticed, but once they realized the extent of it, what did they think?
Yeah. So that summer when they realized that, we went on vacation in July, I think middle of the summer, and it wasn't too bad. Instead of 20 seconds washing my hands, it would be a minute and a half. As we know, OCD sneaks in without us realizing sometimes. And by the time I started school that third grade year, I was spending 5 minutes washing my hands, and all those different like levels of it would come in. So by the time October came around of that fall school year, I was using the extremely hot water, large amounts of soap, and then the duration obviously was the biggest thing. And that's when my parents realized, because my hands were starting to get chapped, right? And it was still nice out, and like not the middle of winter chap. They were cracking and bleeding, as like the visual to my actions of what I was doing, other than just being in the bathroom the whole time,
Do you remember what was going on in your little head at that point? Like, were you just feeling, what were you trying to make sense of what was going on?
Yeah. So in my head, I truly believed, like as Connor, I thought my hands were still dirty. I thought that
Yeah.
if I didn't use this much soap, or I didn't have the water as hot as it could go, that it wasn't clean enough. And my underlying fear was that I was going to get sick. And, now it's easy to look back 14 years later and say, "Oh, that was silly. Why did it bother me that much?" But when you're in it, it's when you're in the mud, you don't see anything around you, right? It's kind of like you have your horse blinders on to everything else. So all I remember was just fully investing and fully believing that my hands were not clean enough. That's the only thing I could think of. And then it finally would be like, all right, after 5 minutes, they felt just clean enough, and then I could exit the bathroom.
Was it showing up in other ways? Were you taking super long showers or avoiding touching certain things in public, doorknobs, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So the hand washing was the first set of it. And then it expanded into a large, amount of different things. So I would do the classic, open the doorknob with the elbows. I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this who have contamination OCD, they would do, like I used to do the elbows. I used to do, like I put my shirt over my hand to open doorknobs.
I still do that sometimes.
Yeah, it happens.
I was going to say you used to do. So at what point did you get diagnosed, and did you go through ERP to overcome those compulsions, or what?
Yeah. So, November of when I was 10 years old, that November in third grade, my parents took me to a psychologist. And that's when I got my diagnosis of OCD. And at the time, I remember coming home. It was right before Thanksgiving break, and my siblings were asking me about it. And I was like, "Guys, I have OCD," right? I thought I was like the man, It's like when you get a new tattoo and you're showing all your friends. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, guys,
Right.
I have OCD." And little did I know how how much of a disruption it would be to my life. Because right then I was like, "Oh, I have OCD. They labeled it. We're good." And from
Right.
there, it just really took off, I think, in so many different ways. Yeah.
I think you're so lucky in a lot of ways that one, your parents were present and aware enough to notice something was up, and then to take you to a psychologist. I think for some people,
And
there's
proactive.
stigma, yeah, that they don't necessarily wanna do it, and then that when you did go to the psychologist, they recognize it as OCD. I mean, we've heard from so many people on this podcast of getting the wrong diagnosis or the wrong treatment, even if they got the right diagnosis. So I'm glad you were able to get that at 10, but it sounds like that wasn't the end of the story. And your contamination OCD at some point turned into harm OCD. So can you just take us from you get diagnosis through to when things really start to spiral for you?
Yeah. So, first off, yeah, just shout out to my parents and my family first. I'm super blessed with that. Until to this day, I've been blessed with a supportive environment with my family, friends, community as well. Um, because like you were saying, Liam, like I was listening to you on the podcast yesterday coming here. It was like you were misdiagnosed a few times, if I'm correct. And then now that you have it, like from the start, I knew OCD, right? So that's been a blessing. So after my diagnosis in that October, when I was in third grade, it really amped up from like that Thanksgiving weekend to Christmas. It was almost like the OCD took steroids, right? All of a sudden it came in to the gym the next day and it was all buff and beef and it took off and it started to do some wild things. And that's when more OCD compulsions came. So the hand washing, obviously huge. Um, and then there's vivid memories I have, Christmas break of compulsions related to brushing my teeth, taking a shower, anything that had to do with cleansing my body of any sort. So 10 years old, I was in Philadelphia visiting some family for Christmas break, and that's when I realized how disruptive my OCD was because instead of spending time opening gifts with the family, having dinner together, um, my mom and dad actually took turns helping me brush my teeth as a 10-year-old. Um, I remember I think it took me probably 45 minutes to an hour to brush my teeth because one, I had to do it a certain way. So there was that just right OCD. So I even remember it was like start on the right side, outside, middle, and then inside. And then you work your way to the left and then go to the bottom. But I didn't trust myself enough to do it. So then that's when my parents were brushing my teeth for me. And it sounds silly. And I used to be embarrassed of that. But it's so real because there's a lot of people out there who are struggling with it. And, that was like the
Yeah.
first thing I realized. I was like, oh my gosh, it's taking me an hour to brush my teeth. And then as far as the showers went, or the baths or whatever I was doing, my OCD convinced me that, for example, I remember I was taking a bath over Christmas break. And as the water fills up into the basin, right, it creates bubbles. When the water hits, creates bubbles, right? Science, it's doing that. My OCD told me those were germs that were being created. So instead of seeing bubbles, I saw germs. So I would have to like not watch it when it filled up, and it would take me 2.5 hours to take a bath sometimes. And that's when I really said, "Hey, this isn't right." I was so distressed. And I remember telling my mom and my dad, I said, like, I want to start worrying about what a kid should worry about, like losing in a video
Hmm.
game or,
Right.
like having a crush on somebody at school. And instead, I was stuck in this bathroom over Christmas break, just trying to get myself clean to OCD
Yeah.
standards. And then that's when
It's a
the ERP came in after that.
yeah, it's a full-time job and your brain does not stop. It is in overdrive 24/7. And did you feel like knowing that you had OCD, you had the insight or moments of now recognizing when it was showing up after you were diagnosed? Were you able to say, "Okay, this is my OCD," and separate yourself from it in those moments?
I would say I knew I had OCD and I knew it was OCD, but I couldn't separate it from my values-based Connor and then like my fear-based Connor, as I like to say.
Right.
Like there's two different people, and I was just all in that fear-based. So I knew why I was washing my hands. I had the OCD. The OCD was driving me to
Right.
act this way. But Alicia, it took me a long time to get to the point where I was separating, okay, this is me and this is what my brain's telling me. So in those
Mhm.
moments, it was like I said, you're fighting a battle that's completely uphill.
It just stands out to me that you mention the two memories that come to mind for you are summer vacation with your family should be so filled with joy, and then Christmas vacation with your family should be so filled with joy. These like seminal moments in our lives when you have OCD can be taken from you. I mean, it's such a thief. Have you been able to process that? Like, oh man, there are all these moments in life that I should have as happy memories of summer vacation, beach time, and beach snacks, and opening Christmas presents, and I'm not there, at least not there mentally.
Yeah.
Have you been able to process that?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, Liam, it's a super emotional thing for me, and my family was very involved with it too. And it took me a while to heal from, I would say, like those missing out moments, and whether it was
Yeah, you mourn them.
right, it's like a death almost because
Yeah.
you're so emotionally invested in what you're going through. But I think if you would have asked me 10 years ago or right after I started ERP, I would have been like, I felt so robbed, right? I felt so robbed. And like I had those conversations with my parents. I often ask, like, why me? I understand, like, what is God trying to teach me? All those things. Now, 14 years later, when I look back, I've been able to accept it more. But it took a lot of time, patience, prayer, and practice because I did feel robbed from those things. As a 10-year-old kid, you want to be playing with your cousins with your new toys, or like you said, you want to be on the beach with your dad throwing the baseball, and you're stuck in this cycle of OCD's absurd way of making your mind work. But now when I look back at it, I wouldn't change it. Obviously, I don't want it to happen again, but I wouldn't change it because I wouldn't be sitting here doing this podcast. Um, I wouldn't have chose the career path I did. I wouldn't have been able to help people who I know, whether it's friends, those I serve in my professional life. It's taught me so much about myself, and how to cope and work through hard times. So now I can give that back to others. And that's, I struggled with my purpose for a long time, still trying to find that. But, I talked to my mom and dad a few days ago, and I had a moment with my mom. I'm like, Mom, think of how far we've come as a family, from doing that. And now I'm going to be on a podcast advocating about it.
I love that. You turned your pain into a purpose.
Most definitely. That's the way you got to do it.
So at some point, Connor, you're dealing with the contamination OCD. You do finally get into ERP, and then along come panic attacks. So how did that show up for you?
Yeah. So ERP started really crushing it after those really few hard months, even up to half a year of just the struggle with the contamination stuff. So my OCD wasn't completely managed, but I was able to live more freely. And then when I was in fifth grade, it actually started my first panic attack. I remember it was at Elm Street Park, right by my house back in Pittsburgh. And I had a panic attack during the game because I remember this kid was throwing heat. I remember this kid, he was throwing some gas, and I was like, oh my gosh, wonder if I get hit by the pitch, right? I played baseball my whole life, never thought of that. I was like, yeah, if you get hit, whatever, turn, go to first base. And all of a sudden, boom, I got hit with my first wave of panic, and it changed my life forever because it was so intense. So I remember I had the panic attack. I ran over to my mom, like by the fence, and she's like, oh, did you eat dinner? Are you hydrating? Right. So they thought it was physical things. And then when I got home, everything kind of just like dissipated. So I didn't really know. And then the next day I went to school and had another panic attack that lasted extremely long. Usually panic, like a true panic attack, it might last maybe a couple minutes, some 30, 45 seconds because it's so intense for your body. This ran its course for me for a while when I was at school. My dad came and picked me up from school the next day. When I got in the car, all the symptoms went away. My parents took me to the pediatric doctor, and they were like, oh man, pollen's really bad this year. You're probably lightheaded from the...
Yeah.
No.
I can't make this up. So they started treating me for allergies. So they're like, oh, we'll get you on some Zyrtec. Make sure you're hydrating. If you can avoid heavily like pollinated areas, that'd be good. So I'm like, okay, mom, dad, we'll get the Zyrtec and start going from there. Um, the pollen wasn't as bad as they thought it was. And a few months later, I'm back at that psychologist that I had seen, going through some panic disorder, and it took a toll on me throughout that whole summer.
Did she prescribe medication for you at that point?
No, so no medication came until after that summer, going into my next school year. So I finished, what was it, fourth grade? Excuse me if I misspoke, but it was fourth grade. I finished that school year, and then that summer, um, the panic attacks came daily. I mean, daily.
Oh,
Wow.
And it got to the point where I stopped leaving my house. And like we talked about a little bit earlier, you talk about, hey, you're supposed to be a kid, right? Going outside, playing with your neighbors, going to basketball camps. I remember playing baseball, and every time, the night before either a baseball game or a basketball camp, I would spend the whole night staying up crying, telling my parents, hey, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And it was just out of fear of having another panic attack, because those feelings were so strong that you don't want to experience it again. So then that led to a bad night of sleep. And then the next morning would come for the basketball camp or the baseball game. And you're in this lingo of, I should go, but my body and mind are telling me not to go.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for my parents pushing me along the way, who knows where I would have been now, to be honest. And we had a lot of tough times in my parents' patience. I mean, my mom, instead of just dropping me off at the basketball camp, she would take me to the high school near our house for the camp, and she would sit in the lobby just so I knew somebody was there if I needed it, right? Or she would sit where I
Aw.
could see her from inside the gym. So things like that I'm forever grateful for. But talk about those little steps that then end up becoming larger things, building blocks. They really provided that for me.
that's I was going to ask about sports because you strike me as an athlete, and
Well, thank you for saying that. I hope my buddies listen to this. You hear that, boys? Liam said I'm the athlete of the group.
you got it, man.
Meanwhile, I was so taken back when Liam told me that he plays basketball because I'm just kidding, Liam. You look like an athlete.
It's not giving athlete. I love it. You give athlete, Connor, and so I have struggled a lot with. I've fortunately have not had panic disorder, but I get very heightened before a game. Even still, just playing in old timey men's leagues. I think about it a lot the night before. It becomes almost panicky in a way. And I want to play. I love playing, but there's this energy to it that's charged and probably not healthy. I wonder how you dealt with that in sports, because you said you were up the night before telling your parents you didn't want to go, but I suspect you did want to go, that you loved sports, that you didn't love the anxiety that was coming with it. Would that be right?
Yeah, so I think there was a clear differentiation for myself between, well, just like to clarify, I wasn't anxious about my performance in the sport or the big game or whatever. With
Right.
that sense, it was more like I was nervous about having another panic attack. To go back to what you're saying, though, it definitely took away my love for sport for a little bit, because the things I once loved, playing basketball, I loved basketball when I was younger, it became tarnished and kind of clouded by my panic attacks. So then,
Mm-hmm.
without really
Because
thinking,
that equaled a panic attack.
exactly,
You don't see the
unconsciously,
fun in it anymore.
right? You're
Mhm.
relating basketball practice or basketball game with a panic attack rather than saying basketball game with fun with my friends, right?
Right.
So it became tarnished with that, and it did take away the love for some time, especially with baseball and basketball. And then once I kind of worked through those things, sport actually was one of my greatest outlets as I got older. But definitely lost the love of it as much as and then even when you're there, right? Like all you're thinking about is having another panic attack. The coach could be explaining a drill, and then it'd be my turn up, and I'm standing there like a deer in headlights because I don't know what the hell he just said, because I'm more worried about, oh my gosh, my heartbeat. Am I catching my breath? Am I having a heart attack? Right? So people don't
It's the
people
worst.
don't
It's
realize
the
this too,
worst.
right? Everything with mental health a lot of the times is so invisible, and if anybody on the street saw uh either any of us, right? It's like, oh, these guys, they look like great people. They're having fun. They're smiling. But inside, it can be a complete demon trying to rip through all your feelings. So,
Yes, I can relate. I hide it very well.
yeah, I would say you guys, I came on here, I'm like, damn, they got big smiles on their face. They look professional. They got it going.
Well, we're both on medication.
So am I.
Look at that.
So am I. So am I.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Just a bunch of thoughts.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Liam's found a perfect cocktail. Well, almost perfect cocktail. I'm working on mine right now. I definitely don't have the intrusive thoughts or the panic attacks. I think the last panic attack I had was Halloween when my son went trick-or-treating for the first time without me. I had a full-blown, like, I was responsible for his death that night.
Yeah.
Which is, yes. And I can relate to the worrying about having a panic attack when my husband would leave town. You'll hear this in the first episode if you haven't listened already, or if you're listening right now and you've already heard the story. My husband would leave town, and I was convinced that someone was going to break in and rape and murder me, that I would barricade the doors when he left. The anxiety was so insane that was the only thing that gave me a little bit of relief. And he would tell me he was going out of town like a month prior to his travel date, and I would live with that anxiety going up to the night, knowing that I was going to have the panic attack that night. And instead of just enjoying the evening at home, have a glass of wine, or I don't drink alcohol, have a kombucha, watch a show, and go. There was not. So you are robbed of enjoying your life. You are so concerned with the idea that your worst case is going to happen, and it is absolutely debilitating.
Alicia, I just wanted to say too, when you talk about that, some people might not realize this, and this is why I want to say it. It's with panic attacks and panic disorder, it's not just the minute that's debilitating. It is, like you said, if you knew your husband was going away, that whole week, right, until he leaves for the trip, that's also very debilitating, because the anticipatory anxiety is often even stronger than when the actual event happens. So that's the first thing. Second thing, for people listening, when Alicia says, oh, I had to barricade the doors, I had this crazy thought that I was going to be raped and murdered, like, people with OCD really believe these things. And as much as it sounds unlogical or doesn't make sense, or oh, that's a silly thought, people with OCD don't understand that, right? We really have to work hard to differentiate what we call just like an intrusive thought that's normal. Everybody has thoughts, and then the OCD grabs a normal thought and turns it into something magnified. So I just wanted to say that too. Yeah. And if you guys, real quick,
those are great points.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you really quick. So with the panic disorder, that summer, this is just really cool story of how I kind of coped with it. So, like I said, my parents pushed me, and even if it was like, hey, go to a baseball game, try your best, you know what I mean? I vividly remember, till this day, my mom and I, it's a bonding moment now. At the time, it was not. I was playing center field, Saturday night baseball game, fun tournament with my friends, and I'm in center field, and I had a panic attack in the top of the first inning. We can laugh about it now. Not at the time. I ran off the field, right?
No.
I ran off the field, and I go around the fence, and I'm like, Mom, I'm having a panic attack. She doesn't know that I'm starting center field, right? So the ball is being thrown. The guy off the bat could have hit one clear to center field. We would have got it inside the park home run. God willing, it didn't happen. But my mom, she ran me back to where the right by the fence where she was standing. And for that whole inning, I'll never forget, my mom and I, between every pitch, we just made eye contact with each other. And that moment with...
It's going to make me cry.
No, it was... I'm getting emotional about it now, but that moment with my mom taught me about loving one another, right? And how far love can take people to drive them and motivate them to get through things. I didn't finish the rest of the game. I sat out the rest of the game. But it was the biggest win for me and my family, that I got on the field and that I played 3 outs, right? And
Mhm.
I wasn't out there for all the pitches because I was shaking her in the bleachers, right? Her and her friends were talking. I said, "Hey, mom, enough with that. I'm having a panic attack," and I got back out on the field. But that moment was life changing for me and my relationship with my mom, and that's a whole nother thing we can get into later about family. But
I love
it
that.
really helped me. So from there, we kind of just built upon things. I had trouble leaving the house that summer. I wouldn't even go to my neighbor's house who I knew my whole life. I didn't feel comfortable being around like him and one of his parents or even driving to like see a movie with them because it wasn't around the most safe people, right? So I
Mhm.
started picking up a deck of cards. The June that summer, right after school ended up, and just started shuffling. And I remember I would watch a YouTube video and I showed somebody a trick and this and that. And the next thing I knew, weeks go by and I'm spending most of my time in my house. I didn't leave my house. So I started learning card magic, right? I did card trick magic. And that was how I ended up coping to socialize again. So growing up with my grandparents, we always played cards at their house. They'd have a cup of coffee, we played cards. And my grandfather, he's now passed away, and I know he's listening to this smiling, but he actually encouraged me, hey, like bring your cards to the graduation party or bring them over for our 4th of July party. And that's how I ended up being more comfortable in social settings. I kind of broke the barrier by saying, "Hey, you guys want to see a trick?" Um, and I was a wizard with it, man. I was really good. I was 10 years
I
old,
love that.
and card
Awesome.
and magic got me back into socializing with other people. So I used a vehicle of something that locked me in my house. I used it as a way to say, "Hey, I can take something I'm really confident and comfortable with,
Mhm.
have it be my first kind of 5-10 minutes of a conversation and then go from there." And it was
That is beautiful. I love
yeah,
that. That is such a sweet
yeah,
example to anyone listening out there that you can get back out there and that helped take you out of your own head,
yeah,
you know, in those social environments and take the focus off you. I love that.
yeah. It was a crazy experience. And then like still it didn't solve everything. And like later, I mean earlier you asked, like I was put on a medication and I was on Zoloft. And that ended up helping. And still, it doesn't change everything right away. So patience is key in treatment, right? And things aren't going to change overnight. It's not like putting a Band-Aid on or getting stitches and the wounds all better right away. It's not like that. So patience with that. And then going back into that, my 5th grade year, I had some tough times getting back into school. And then before you know it, man, we're back and feeling more confident than ever.
Quick break. We'll be right back. But first, a word from our sponsor. The same distressing, unwanted thoughts keep playing over and over in your mind. The same rituals keep eating up your time, holding you back from enjoying your life. You've tried talk therapy before and spent session after session diving into those thoughts, trying to understand them, trying to fix them, but somehow they just get worse. And the shame piles on because you think, why isn't this working? What's wrong with me? If this sounds familiar, here's what you need to know. You're not the problem. You're experiencing something that a lot of people with OCD experience. Getting your life back is possible because OCD is highly treatable. It just requires a completely different approach than other mental health conditions. In fact, standard talk therapy often makes OCD worse because it encourages you to analyze those intrusive thoughts or try to replace them with positive ones. But with OCD, the more attention you give the thoughts, the stickier they become. That's where NoCD comes in. NoCD provides virtual therapy designed specifically for OCD. Every single one of their therapists is extensively trained in a type of therapy called ERP, or exposure and response prevention, which is the most effective treatment available for OCD. And they get the training from world-renowned OCD experts so they truly understand what you're dealing with, even the stuff that feels impossible to say out loud. In live face-to-face virtual sessions, your NoCD therapist will teach you how to take the power away from intrusive thoughts so you can live the life that you want to live. And between sessions, you'll be able to message your therapist anytime, join dozens of life support groups, and continue your progress with other expert-developed therapy tools. NoCD is also covered by insurance for over 138 million Americans, and their team makes it really simple to get started. Visit nocd.com and book a free 15-minute call. That's nocd.com to learn more and talk to someone who can help, because you deserve treatment that actually works for OCD.
So at some point, your OCD veers into harm OCD. How did that first show up for you? And when I was like, oh, this is a new gift. I've gone contamination OCD, then panic. Now I have harm
Yeah.
OCD.
So elementary school was the contamination OCD. Uh, like going into middle school, like 5th, 6th grade was kind of the panic disorder. And then my middle school years were great. I was really thriving. I got my braces on. I thought I was the man. You know what I mean? It's like when you're that young, you get braces. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get them to match my basketball uniform. And now I look back,
Right.
wow, I look like an idiot. But middle school was great. And then 10th grade was when my harm OCD started. I listened to the podcast with you and Tori, and you guys talked about how a lot of people say, oh, I'm depressed, right? And that's the only diagnosis. So my OCD in high school started to change to more just like cognitive OCD. That's how I call it. It's all in my head. So there's no physical compulsions. So I had thoughts that I was gonna just die, like hurl over and die. So I'd be playing in a soccer game and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. Or I'd be sitting in class and I'd say, all right, what's the point of learning this if I'm just gonna die? So it really made it difficult to focus in school, sports, different things. And then that sophomore year, a few months after those thoughts started, I had my first like depressive episode, which started then the harm OCD. So with the depression, like I said, correlates with the OCD. The OCD makes you feel sad. It makes you feel helpless,
Totally.
worthless sometimes. And that's the connection you guys talked about with Tori, which I think is very needed to be understood. So then the harm OCD.
Yeah, I mean, you start to isolate
Yeah.
yourself, and then you start to think you're a shitty person, and then your confidence is tanks, and then you're depressed.
Yeah, just like that. Yeah, that's the cycle right there. So sophomore year, I start feeling depressed, and I start having this thought, oh, wonder if I kill myself, you know? And I'm not saying that to be blunt or anything like that. There's a real thoughts I had. It was just, hey, I wonder if I kill myself. It started one time and then it said, oh, wonder if I hurt myself, just harm myself, cut myself, right? So Mayday, right? Your brain starts flashing red lights, sirens are going off in your brain. And I'm sitting there in my bedroom, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if you told me that I would be having these thoughts right now, I would have called you crazy. I ended up going to see my therapist at the time, and I did not understand that those thoughts were OCD thoughts. Like we talked about, differentiating the two, I didn't know. I thought that I was suicidal, that I was going to lose control. And we broke it down with my therapist and my parents. We all sat in on a meeting and we had the talk about, like, you got to do those safety checks, right? Because it's a very serious thing. Once we knew I was safe, then we took that time. I took a few days off of school, and then we got into the treatment after that. But that's how the harm OCD started, was with those thoughts that quickly became powerful and very, very scary.
Very scary, very real, because you think, why am I having these thoughts? And at what point do people act on these thoughts? What's that switch, right? Like, I don't even want to be having them, but I'm having them. And so at what point does this thought become an actual thing?
Yeah. So I think for me, I was in like disbelief first because I was always a happy kid. You know, even going through things, I was always pretty happy. I never had those thoughts. So then that thought comes in and I was so in shock that I didn't really know how to go about it. And I even had trouble verbalizing it to my parents saying, hey, I'm having these thoughts. So I dealt with it very much in my own head, which is extremely tiring.
I've been there, and I didn't realize it was OCD either. And it's just, it just adds another layer of depression, because you're like, am I suicidal? I don't want to die. I don't want to do that. Why am I having these thoughts? Or do I? And I'm worse than I think. And it just becomes a really crappy place to be in your head. And I mean, I've been there.
Yeah.
I know exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so
I went to the point where I was thinking about how I was going to do it. I mean, I went that far.
Okay.
I was like, if I were to, what would that look like? And then this was all before I knew it was OCD. And now I'll have a thought creep in. I'm like, no, not today. We're not going there. I don't need to think that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to do that.
It was obviously scary, like you're saying. And then I had those thoughts too, like you were. It's like, am I actually going to do this? Am I actually going to act on this? Right. I didn't trust myself as a 16-year-old kid. I didn't trust myself to like be by myself for those few weeks. I didn't trust myself to, even think like, even if I watched a movie where there was like a weapon in it, or if I saw a razor in the shower at my house, like those certain triggers, I took them, I don't want to say took them for granted, but in the past I saw those, they never bothered me. And that's the thing with OCD. It can hold on to something like that, and it becomes a whole thing in the front of your brain that's really hard to look past.
And then you get into college and you have another depressive episode, and it was bad enough that you had to take a break. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, college, wait, real quick before we go into that, I'm going to tell you the story about the football game, if that's okay.
Oh yeah. Let's hear.
Okay. So, so I go and get I confessed to my therapist and my parents, like at a group session one night. I said, hey, I'm having these suicidal thoughts. I don't know if it's me or OCD. I was super, super confused. So I ended up not going to school Thursday or Friday, and talk about things being robbed of you. I played football that year in high school, and I didn't get to play in the last game because I was at home watching it on TV with my mom because my brother played. He was a senior. My dad's at the game watching him, but I was so depressed and scared to be out and different things. I couldn't function. So I'm watching it from home. And like I said, my coach was super supportive of like, hey, take what the time you need, which was really cool. And then my brother, Colby, he's a senior and he's looking at going to different colleges, right? So I grew up in a Penn State family. My parents met at Penn State, all these different things. So they're playing Ohio State that Saturday at Ohio State. So Wednesday of that week, I'm crying on the couch at therapy saying, hey, I'm having these scary, crazy thoughts. And I get a text from my brother on Thursday when he's at school. He said, hey, I'm buying us tickets to Columbus for the game on Saturday. So instead of saying, oh, yippee, I'm saying, oh my God, this is insane. I'm going to go to Columbus with my brother after having the worst few days of my life. The harm OCD comes in. We get to the stadium at Ohio State, and we're in the top bowl, man. We're up in peanut heaven. And talk about a trigger, right?
You thought you were going to fall.
I thought I was going to jump off.
Jump.
I thought I was going to jump.
Yeah.
My OCD was telling me that I was going to jump from the top of the stands over the railing. So it was insane, right? So you get to the game, it was insane. It was when Saquon was a junior. It was amazing. Everybody's going nuts. We're all cheering, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, am I going to lose control of my body and hurl myself over this balcony at the stadium? And talk about the longest football game ever, right? That thing felt like an eternity. It felt like an eternity.
Yeah, because an outsider would just look at you and go, well, just don't think that. You're not going to do that. But when you have OCD, you can't stop thinking about the fact that you could do that if you wanted to, and how easily that would be to just like hurl yourself over the railing. I mean, I can't be on a bridge without thinking I'm going to drive myself off of it.
Yeah.
That is a part of the OCD that people don't realize that, is debilitating.
Yeah, and I'm in this awesome sporting environment, right? Watching great players with great friends, and my brother, and all I could focus on was the railing. That's all I could Focus on during the game. I'd watch a play, then between plays, I would look at the railing, and it's so crazy. Like you said, people with OCD,
Sucks.
you could have say you painted a picture. This is something for people listening. This might help, like put a painting in somebody's mind. But say you had a photo, right, of a blue sky, and there's one little pink speck of paint that the painter puts on it in the bottom right-hand corner. Somebody looking without OCD would say, oh my gosh, look how beautiful. That's a blue sky they just painted. Somebody with OCD says, oh my gosh, you guys see that pink dot on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all we see. And like you said, Alicia, driving over a bridge, somebody might say, oh my gosh, this bridge is beautiful. In your mind, you're thinking, am I going to turn right really quick, right?
Yeah.
That's how it goes for people with OCD. I love using that visual because it's not just as simple as, hey, Alicia, Liam, don't think about it. It's not like that.
Yeah. No.
If someone says don't think about it, I get violent.
They just added fuel to the fire.
Did you get to enjoy the game at all, or no?
Yeah. So after about a quarter and a half, I like ERP, right? I was in the exposure the whole time, and um, in ERP, you start at a base level. We describe it as climbing up the roller coaster or climbing up the mountain. You hit your peak, right? And then there comes that habituation where you work your way down through it.
Yeah.
So I did get to enjoy the game until Penn State lost at the end, and we had to drive 3 hours home. The sad fans. Yeah.
Then you jumped.
Yeah. Hey, Alicia. Yeah. Then that thought came into my head. So
Drove off the grid.
yeah.
Do your brothers understand what OCD is at that point? And do you share that with them when you have those thoughts going on in your head? Do you tell anybody, or were you just keeping it all inside?
So
sometimes I feel like it helps to share the crazy thought. I don't know. That's just me. Like sometimes if I'm in that zone, I'll share it with somebody so that I can laugh about it with them, and it almost diffuses it a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. So, growing up, I was very private about it, like only my family, right? And as I got older, that OCD became more complex. But a lot of the times in those situations, I thought to myself, I'm not going to ruin my brother's time at this game because I'm having a thought, right? Or I'm not going to be on vacation and tell my parents or my sister, hey, I'm having this crazy thought. They're supposed to be enjoying it too. So I was very unselfish in that. And I think that's something that's just something in me. And even now when people say, hey, are you okay? It might take me a few times or a few minutes to say, no, I'm really not, right? Because we put on that mask to say I'm okay. When deep down we're really hurting. So for example, for that thing, I didn't talk to my brother about it. I just kind of dealt with it myself. He knew I was going through those harm OCD thoughts, and he knew I just had come off the first like really tough days of my life. But I dealt with it, and then I think after the fact, when I went to therapy the next week, that's when I broke it down with my therapist.
So where are you with it now? How is your OCD at this stage in your life?
Yeah, so I still have OCD. It's definitely still there. And it's crazy how OCD works because it attacks the things you care about, the things you love, and the things you value. That's a recurring theme you'll hear anywhere, whether it's talking to you, going to the therapist, listening to a different podcast. Like the OCD attacks what you care about. So, like right now, where I'm at in my life, I'm 24. I've been in my career for about a year and a half. So a lot of my OCD is like pure OCD. There's not a lot of compulsions you can
like physical compulsions.
No physical compulsions now. You don't. You can't see the OCD on me anymore. So a lot of my obsessions now relate to like decision making, success. Am I doing the right thing? A lot of replaying and like wanting to remember different things, right? So sometimes if I said, "Oh, Liam, did I already tell you about?" Like, I'll say I talked to you on Tuesday. Say if I'm like, "Oh, did I tell you about when I went and got ice cream with my friend?" And if I don't remember that, my OCD is like, "Oh my gosh, you have dementia," you know.
Yeah.
So it does things like that now. Where
I definitely have thought that I have early onset dementia. That's so
yeah, it's a thing. So that's where my OCD is at now. And a lot of it's just right in between my ears and not as much as physically being shown. But it could be anything now, I think. Like I don't have a subtype that's just showing up. It's really day to day what's in front of me. And then the OCD will say, "Oh, you see that over there? That's going to be your trigger for today." And then that's the battle I have to fight. So just day by day. And some days are easier than others, but big believer in just kind of pushing through that, leaning on my support team to get through each day.
Tell us a little bit about lifestyle and how that impacts your OCD. And do you think having healthy habits throughout your day can lessen, I guess, the symptoms?
Yes. So I'm a big believer in the connection between physical health and mental health. I don't think it's talked enough about. If you take care of yourself physically, and you value that, I think it's not going to cure your OCD. It's not going to cure whatever you're going through, but I definitely think it makes you see significant changes in yourself. For example, if I'm feeling the other night, right, I'm doing my taxes, super stressed out about my taxes. Somebody with OCD, I rechecked it a million times. I did the calculations a million times. And my dad, he's sitting there with me at the table teaching me a few things. And I said, hey, Dad, I need to take a walk. And people think when they exercise or when they have to make these choices, it has to be this huge, abundant change, right? I have to eat clean 3 meals a day. I have to eliminate all alcohol. I have to lift a certain amount of weight. I went on a 10-minute walk that night, came back to the table and reset my nervous system so I could finish the task at hand. Little things I've been doing recently. I actually started to help coach at my local high school, help coach with a football team. And 3 days a week, we get up before school for the kids. So we start workouts at 5:30. And then after that, I just shower there and go to work. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, when we're there, my days at work are one, more productive. My mood's better. And throughout the whole day, I'm more motivated to do different things. When you get up and do something to start your day, that's what I've really seen to start my day, connecting with people, movement, drinking water, spending time with people I love. It carries over. It snowballs for the rest of your day. Unlike the Tuesday, Thursdays, right? Or on the weekends when I'll roll over and check my phone to turn off the alarm. Next thing I know, I'm in bed for 30 minutes on Instagram. That happens, right? But I get in my head about that and dwell on those things, and it affects my mood for the rest of the day. So I'm a big believer, get up if you can. It's much easier said than done, but finding something you're passionate about, going on a walk, making a healthy meal with your friend, challenging yourself to do those things can help you tremendously as an output for all the stress that we carry as people with OCD. So finding an outlet's a huge, huge thing that I would put in your toolkit, as we say, for somebody with OCD.
Big believer in that as well. I know Alicia is too. Tell us just a little bit about Still Good Wellness. You've decided to publicly talk about your experience with OCD. So what is Still Good Wellness and why did you decide to do it?
So Still Good Wellness was the thought I had in high school, right? I didn't have the name, but I had this thought about, hey, I want to help people who, the same way people have helped me, right? When I was younger, I was very reserved with my OCD. I would lie to my friends about where I was going because I'd go to therapy. I'd just say, hey, I have a doctor's appointment or I have a haircut or whatever it was. And now it's crazy to see from when I was diagnosed as a 10-year-old hiding my hands because they were bleeding, or like I said, lying to my friends about where I was going, to then being a senior in college a few years ago, raising my hand in my community mental health saying, hey, Professor, I went through this. I can talk about it if you need me to, right? So anybody listening, if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like you want to share but you can't, it comes with time and it comes with courage, and don't be discouraged if you feel like you can't share everything all at once. It took me years and years, and then I finally came up with this idea when I was in college to create a name, and I landed on Still Good Wellness because I'm a big believer in we have to focus on positive things. So whatever we think about, whatever we spend our time around, whatever we ingest as human beings is what we're going to output to other people, right? So if I spend my time with people who steal, cheat, lie, I'm going to steal, cheat, and lie. But if I surround myself with people who give back, who spend time with people they love, who lend a helping hand, then I'm going to do those things too. Still good, that idea connects because we have to focus on what's still good in this world. We live in a society now where we turn on the news and it's immediately bad news, people fighting, some sort of anything, right? It's a negative thing. But when we turn our phones off, when we turn the TV off and we look, we can say, hey, write 3 things down that were really good for you, even on your worst days. What is good for you? You might have had the worst day of your life, but when I write down, I say, what was still good? I got to spend time with my buddy. I got to go on a walk with my dog. I got to watch the sporting event. I got to go to the Pirates game tonight, whatever it is. That's what Still Good is about. It's seeing the goodness in things, even on our toughest days. OCD is a really hard disorder to deal with. It's taxing, it's straining. But if we can help ourselves just by writing 3 things down a day, or even thinking them, right, we can make a world difference, not only for ourselves, but the people we surround ourselves with. And my idea with the account is to inspire people to make the world better, to talk about what you're going through and to love one another and be there for one another.
Connor, my heart is bursting right now. You are a light, and you are top 3 on my what is still good list today.
Thank you.
What a joy you have been, and your vulnerability and sharing your story is incredible, and the work that you're doing is going to go far. I really, really appreciate you taking the time today. What an honor it was.
Oh, well, thank you so much, guys. It's been an honor for me. And like I said at the beginning of this, you and Liam are 2 people that I would definitely stay in contact with and look up to as somebody. Not that you're old. I'm just younger than you guys. But,
it's okay. We're getting there.
No, you're not. I know Liam's going to take an hour routine stretch before he runs, but it's all right. But, no, as somebody younger, you guys, this OCD Confessional podcast has come into my life recently, and it's something that I'm going to aspire to be like you guys in the sense of how you connect with people and how you reach out and how you truly, like, as soon as I met you guys on here, I feel the love and I feel that you truly care about helping people around you. So thank you for that. And I'm sure I'll be bugging you guys, asking you questions. And whenever I can get to Boston or LA, we'll have to link up for maybe a Red Sox game, a Dodgers game. I've been to both stadiums, so we'll get that going.
That'd be
absolutely.
And Connor, thank you, especially as a young man, for speaking out about this. I think young men are struggling right now and don't always know how to say it. So thank you for being a young man who is saying it. It's needed.
Thank you, Liam. I appreciate that. And just one last thing. If you're listening to this and you're going through something tough, lean on the people who love you. And find the people who love you, because even on those darkest days when you feel alone, there's somebody who cares about you, right? There's somebody who wants to help you. But people don't know how to help if they don't know you need the help. So really hang in there, check in on your people, especially nowadays, right? Like you said, Liam, kids my age, suicide is one of the leading causes of deaths between 18 and 24-year-old males. And with my friends, I think I've helped them learn. They don't know the inside and outs of OCD, but they definitely know that I care about mental health and I care about each one of them. And I think my biggest thing that I've learned throughout my experience is you never know what somebody's going through. Somebody like me, I came from a great family. We were all athletes. We grew up, my mom's a teacher in the community. Everybody knew us, but behind closed doors, they didn't know I was taking 3-hour showers. They didn't know that I was staying up all night because I didn't want to play in the baseball game the next day. So when you're done listening to this podcast, go out into the world with an open mindset, understanding that the person behind you in traffic who's beeping at you might be having a really tough day, or the person who is short with you at work might be going through a very hard breakup or depression that we don't know about. So treat everybody with that kindness, because that's what the world needs. And check in on your people, check in on your loved ones. If you're thinking about doing something nice for somebody, give them a call, shoot them a text, say, hey man, I'm thinking about you, because this world needs a love now more than ever. So I appreciate you guys having me on.
I texted you that I had gone down to every other week with my therapist because we're making progress. So that's great. And you were like, yeah, but did you check whether or not you hit that person on the road? You're screwing with me. And it's funny because when you texted that, I was like, well, that hasn't really been much of a theme for me. But then I remembered when I was a teenager, I did have this period of time. I was driving in my hometown and I hit a squirrel and I was devastated.
I have a similar story. It was a rabbit.
Oh,
okay, wait.
This is crazy.
I cried.
Yeah, so I hit the squirrel. I just was devastated that I killed this squirrel. And there was nothing I could do. You know, it ran out with no time to react. And it touched off a little bit of this checking thing where I kept thinking I was running over animals, or then I was like, damn it, did I run over a person? And this is a very common theme in OCD. So I handled it pretty well, but I would go through periods or like have this one day where it was loud and I would do a lot of circling. And so this one time, I can't believe I had forgotten this. I must have been like 16 and I'm driving at night and I hit a speed bump or like a pothole or something. And I'm like, oh my God, I hit a squirrel. Right. And so then I'm like, no, I didn't. I knew that something about it wasn't rational, but I was caught in it. So I drove maybe a mile up and I was like, no, you know what? I'm going to turn around. I'm going to go back. I'm going to make sure I didn't hit a squirrel. So I turn around, I go back, and there's a fucking dead squirrel.
No.
So,
No. You hit it. You hit another one.
so I did hit the squirrel. It's like,
Oh no! What does that do for your OCD? That I mean,
it wasn't
jeez.
good. Yeah, because then I was like, I should be checking. It should be, even though.
See the reassurance. Oh, what do you do after that? Did you just leave him there?
Yeah, I mean, he was a goner.
Aw.
And I was just really sad. But then, and it made, for the next probably few weeks, I was really like, and it's just so funny that your text reminded me that had happened, because I had
Sometimes you forget all the things that are related to OCD that you do. That's funny.
It's just, anyone listening though who has that as an issue, do not turn back around. As it turns out, I had hit a squirrel. Nothing that could be done. Thanks for listening to another episode of the OCD Confessional. Be sure to follow this show so you get new episodes. You can subscribe to us on YouTube or find us on Instagram and TikTok at the OCD Confessional.